Ladies and gentlemen, it's so good to be here with you today. Love is powerful, it's transformative, and I've learned something important. The best kind of love is the one that adds to your fire, not dims your light. Let me share with you 4 truths I live by. Before you can truly love someone else, you have to know who you are. That might sound like a cliche, but trust me, it's one of the most important lessons you'll ever learn. I've seen it in my life, in the lives of the people I love, and in every woman I admire. Strength in relationships starts with self-awareness. You can't pour from an empty cup. If you don't understand your own values, your goals, your passions, if you don't recognize your own worth, you'll find yourself molding into what someone else wants you to be. And that's not love, that's performance. That's survival. And love should never feel like survival. There's something powerful about spending time with yourself, learning who you are when no one else is around. What excites you? What makes you feel alive? What makes you feel uncomfortable? What are the non-negotiables in your life, the things you will not compromise for anyone? These are not just reflective questions. These are your roots, because when the storms of life hit, and they will, if you don't have strong roots, you'll be blown away by someone else's wind. Often we're taught that relationships are about giving. Give your heart, give your time, give your everything. And while generosity is beautiful, it should never mean giving so much that you have nothing left for yourself. Your identity is not a gift you wrap up and hand to someone else. It's something you protect, nurture, and proudly wear, whether you're single, dating, married, or anywhere in between. I remember being in relationships where I started to lose myself without even realizing it. I'd changed the way I dressed, the way I talked, even the way I dreamed, just to make the other person feel more comfortable. I thought I was being loving. I thought I was being flexible. But what I was really doing was erasing parts of myself to make space for someone who wasn't doing the same for me. That's not love, that's shrinking. And we are not here to shrink. We are here to take up space, to thrive, to be seen fully and completely. When you don't know yourself well, you confuse attention for affection. You mistake control for care. You chase validation instead of building connection. And that's where things start to hurt. When you give people power over a version of you that isn't even real. So if that relationship ends, and some will, you're left shattered, not because you lost someone else, but because you never had you to begin with. Knowing who you are means taking the time to listen to your inner voice. Not the loudest voice in the room, not the person you're in love with, not your parents or society or Instagram. Your voice. What does she want? What does she feel? What does she believe in? Spend time with her. Write to her. Listen to her. That relationship, the one with yourself, will be the compass for everything else in your life. And when you know yourself, you walk into relationships differently. You're not begging to be chosen. You're not chasing love like it's a prize to be won. You are the prize. You're already whole, already complete. You're looking for someone who complements your life, not completes it. That's a huge difference. You also set boundaries more clearly. You say no when it matters. You recognize red flags not as challenges to fix, but as signs to step away. You stop trying to convince people of your worth. Because when you know who you are, you don't need their permission to shine. You shine anyway. This kind of self-knowing doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. It takes time, experiences, heartbreaks, and sometimes a whole lot of silence. But it's worth it. Because once you've built that relationship with yourself, once you've looked in the mirror and said, this is who I am, and I love her, everything else becomes clearer. Love becomes less confusing. You stop settling for crumbs. You stop mistaking chaos for passion. And you start attracting people who recognize your light because it's real. It's not a performance. It's not borrowed. It's not fragile. It's yours. So my message to anyone who's in love, looking for love, or healing from it is this. Don't rush into giving yourself away. Don't trade your identity for the illusion of connection. The right person will not only love you for who you are, they'll celebrate it. But that celebration can only happen if you've already done the work to know what's worth celebrating. Love can be beautiful, grounding, and life-changing. But it should never cost you your essence. Know who you are before you share yourself. And when you do share yourself, let it be from a place of strength, not sacrifice. Because you, just as you are already enough. There's a difference between building walls and setting boundaries. And the difference is everything. A wall keeps people out. No entry, no exit, no connection. But a boundary is a door. It opens when it's safe. It closes when it needs to. It's not about isolation, it's about intention. Setting boundaries in love isn't about being distant, cold, or controlling. It's about knowing your limits and being brave enough to protect them. Too often, we're taught that in order to love someone, we have to be endlessly available physically, emotionally, mentally. We're told that real love means sacrifice, compromise, and putting the other person first. And yes, relationships do take effort, but not at the expense of your peace, your energy, or your identity. When you don't set boundaries, you teach people that it's okay to overstep. You send the message that your time isn't sacred, that your comfort doesn't matter, that your voice can wait. And over time, you start to lose the very parts of yourself that made you lovable in the first place. Let me be honest. Setting boundaries isn't always easy. It's uncomfortable. It can feel like confrontation. It can trigger guilt, especially if you're used to being the peacemaker, the caretaker, the one who bends. But boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. They say, this is who I am. This is what I need to feel safe, respected, and whole. If you can meet me here, great. If not, I will still be okay. One of the biggest misconceptions is that people will just know what your boundaries are. But they won't. They're not mind readers. You have to articulate them. You have to be direct. Whether it's how often you want to communicate, what kind of touch makes you feel comfortable, or what topics are off limits during conflict, say it out loud. You're not being too much. You're being real. And realness is the foundation of any lasting love. Another myth that boundaries push people away, but I found that the opposite is true. The right people don't run from your boundaries. They respect them. They appreciate them. Because they know that when you feel safe, you show up more authentically. You love more fully. You give more freely, not out of pressure, but out of joy. Think about it. A relationship with no boundaries is like a house with no doors. Anyone can walk in at any time, leave a mess, and disappear. That's chaos. That's instability. But a house with doors, that's intentional. That's selective. That's home. And you deserve to feel at home in your relationship. Not like a guest tiptoeing around someone else's comfort while abandoning your own. Boundaries also help you maintain a sense of self. In love, it's easy to get wrapped up in the we, our plans, our problems, our future. And while partnership is beautiful, you should never disappear inside it. You should still have your own space, your own friendships, your own voice. A healthy relationship doesn't swallow your identity, it supports it. Sometimes you'll get pushback when you set a boundary. That's normal. Especially if the people around you are used to you saying yes all the time. Don't let that scare you. Stand firm. Your comfort is not up for debate. Your needs are not a burden. If someone truly cares for you, they will adjust. And if they don't, it's better to know early. Also, remember that boundaries are not just rules for other people. They're also promises you keep with yourself. If you say you won't tolerate disrespect, but stay silent every time it happens, that's not a boundary, that's avoidance. You have to honor your own word, not for them, for you. And here's something else I've learned: boundaries are not static. They evolve. What you need at 25 may not be what you need at 35. As you grow, your boundaries should grow with you. Stay in touch with yourself. Check in often. Ask what's working, what's draining me, where do I need to draw a clearer line. You're allowed to shift, to adjust, to refine. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Boundaries also deepen intimacy. Yes, they create more connection, not less. When both people feel respected and emotionally safe, the relationship becomes a space where both can flourish. There's less resentment, fewer unspoken tensions, more truth, more freedom. Love becomes less about guessing and more about knowing. Knowing that your partner sees you, hears you, and respects the lines you've drawn. So don't let anyone make you feel guilty for having boundaries. They're not walls to keep love out. They're doors. Doors you open when the energy is right, when the respect is mutual, when the love is safe. And just like any door, you get to decide who comes in, how long they stay, and what behavior is acceptable once they're inside. Protect your peace. Guard your energy. Love fiercely, but not blindly. And remember, you are not hard to love. You are just not meant to be walked all over. Boundaries don't limit love, they elevate it. There's nothing more heartbreaking than watching someone dim their own light just to make someone else feel comfortable. And so many of us, especially women, are taught, subtly or overtly, that we need to take up less space in order to be loved. Be quieter, be simpler, be more agreeable, be less ambitious. And somehow, we're led to believe that if we just become what someone else needs, we'll be worthy of staying. That's a lie. You were not put on this earth to be small. You were not born to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. And love, real, healthy love, will never ask you to fold yourself down into a more digestible version just so someone else can swallow it more easily. You don't have to be less so that someone else can feel like more. When you shrink yourself, you betray your truth. Maybe it starts with something small. Laughing a little less loudly, not mentioning your promotion, saying you don't mind when you actually do. But slowly, piece by piece, you start cutting parts of yourself off. Your opinions get quieter, your dreams get postponed. Your needs take the back seat. And what you're left with is a relationship that might look perfect from the outside but feels hollow on the inside. Because you're not really in it. A version of you is a diluted, edited, filtered version that you created for someone else's comfort. It's so tempting to seek approval. We all want to be seen, wanted, chosen. But here's the hard truth. If you're not being loved as your real self, then you're not truly being loved at all. You're being tolerated. And tolerance is not affection. It's not intimacy. It's not home. It's a cage. You deserve to be with someone who gets excited about your passion, not intimidated by it. Someone who doesn't flinch when you speak your mind, but leans in and listens. Someone who doesn't ask you to make yourself smaller to fit into their life, but expands their world to make room for everything you are. There's nothing noble about shrinking. It's not loyalty, it's not sacrifice, it's self-abandonment. And if you abandon yourself long enough, eventually you'll wake up in a life that feels foreign. One where you don't recognize the woman in the mirror because she spent so long trying to be someone else. Think about who you were before the world told you who you should be. That bold. You deserve someone who comes into your life as a whole person, not someone who needs to be repaired or rescued. We all have our challenges, our pasts, our growth areas. That's part of being human. But when you enter a relationship, you should be doing so to complement each other's lives. Not to fix what's broken. Let's be clear. Relationships require work. They take effort, understanding, communication, and compromise. But the work that needs to be done isn't about changing the core of who someone is. You should never feel like you have to save someone from themselves, to build them up from nothing, or to sacrifice your needs and desires in order to help them become who they could be. A healthy, thriving relationship is one where both partners are constantly growing, but both are already whole, already strong, and already aware of their worth. When you choose someone as a project, you create a dynamic where you're always focused on their potential rather than their present. You find yourself endlessly fixing their flaws, excusing their behavior, and justifying why they haven't shown up as their best self. You start thinking, if only they could see their potential. And while it's admirable to support someone through hard times and help them grow, it's dangerous to assume you're the one who can guide them into the person you want them to be. This dynamic can quickly lead to frustration, resentment, and burnout. It's draining to constantly pour love, energy, and resources into someone who isn't interested in their own growth, or doesn't acknowledge their own responsibility in the relationship. You might think you're being loving and patient, but eventually you'll find yourself exhausted, emotionally depleted, and resentful. And when that happens, the foundation of your relationship crumbles. The truth is, you cannot change someone's fundamental character. You can't make someone more responsible, more emotionally intelligent, or more driven if they aren't already willing to make those changes themselves. You can be supportive, you can offer advice, but at the end of the day, it's their choice to do the work. If they're not ready, or worse, if they don't see any need for change, no amount of love or effort on your part is going to make a difference. And ultimately, you end up losing yourself in the process. Choosing a partner instead of a project means acknowledging that you deserve someone who already has the emotional maturity, the self-awareness, and the personal growth that you can match. A partner should be someone who complements your life, not someone you have to convince to meet you halfway. It means you're walking beside each other, both already whole, both bringing something unique to the relationship that enriches and elevates the connection. This doesn't mean you should expect perfection. None of us are perfect. But it does mean that both people need to come into the relationship with a sense of responsibility for their own growth. Both need to be accountable for their actions, their words, and their behaviors. When you choose a partner, you choose someone who understands that love is not just about chemistry or attraction. It's about a shared commitment to the relationship and to individual growth. A project-based relationship, where one person is constantly fixing the other, is never equal. It puts one person in a caretaker or therapist role, while the other is stuck in the position of being the problem. No matter how much you love them, it's emotionally exhausting to always be in that dynamic. Relationships should be built on mutual respect, shared interests, and a balance of give and take. Not on one person always being the giver and the other always needing to receive. And let's not forget that when you choose a project, you're missing out on the joy of being with someone who is ready to share their life with you right here, right now. You're investing so much energy into someone who isn't yet capable of meeting you where you are, and that takes away the potential for real connection. Real love comes from two people who are ready to be vulnerable, open, and honest with each other, without one of them constantly wondering when the other will change. Love shouldn't feel like a never-ending project. It should feel like a partnership. You deserve someone who is emotionally available, who is ready to commit, who knows who they are, and who can meet you with the same level of love, respect, and understanding that you give. You don't need to be a fixer, a therapist, or a savior. You need someone who is already there and ready to build a life with you. And when you stop looking for projects, you start recognizing real love when it walks into your life. You stop tolerating things that you know aren't right, and you start demanding a level of respect and equality that you deserve. You stop waiting for someone to change, and you start walking into relationships that reflect the person you've become: strong, whole, and capable of loving and being loved in return. Choosing a partner, not a project, is about choosing yourself first. It's about knowing your worth and not settling for anything less than the respect, love, and partnership you deserve. It's about choosing to walk beside someone who is already whole, so that together you can grow even more. And that's the kind of relationship that will last, one that is built on mutual respect, shared dreams, and a deep understanding that both of you are ready to be the best versions of yourselves together. So yes, love hard, love deep, but love smart, and always, always, love yourself first. Because the most beautiful relationship you'll ever have is with you. Thank you.